Nickelodeon, be-doo.
Greetings and salutation, my beautiful people. This is In Our Prime and welcome to We have now reached the 2000s era of very good shows, 3 pilots that got picked up from the Y2K cartoons, and the one show that's the most critically acclaimed of them all. Let's decide which one of these shows gets the slaughter and the salve.
Someone once told me the grass is much greener on the other side.
Bullshit it is! What the fuck are you looking at? It's time for the 5th and the final Klasky Chupo show I'll be talking about. Sorry, Poppycat fans, but also the 7th one because I talked about all the Rugrats shows in one segment, except for preschool days because I forgot to talk about the miniseries. Sorry, Making Fiends fans. Anyway, I watched a ton of Ass Told by Ginger, and it might have been the first high school drama show I watched because, like the weirdo kid I was in school, I was heavily invested in its characters and themes it tackled. Family and relationship issues, peer pressure, growing up, death, all that, but taken 100% seriously from Nickelodeon of all channels. I think Ginger's a pretty fun protag, alongside her friends Darren, Macy, and no one else. I think Ginger's mom Lois is a fun character that goes through her own changes throughout the series, and Ginger's brother Carl is almost a main character in his own way, doing his whole Dennis the Menace stick, the British one, not the American one. Getting to know his friends, his classmates, his teachers, his love interest, inviting an old crazy lady over for dinner to his house to ask her hand in marriage only for her to die a heart attack and coming back later in another episode as a ghost. You know, slice of life shit. I even like what they did with the rich popular girl Courtney of all characters. Almost all the time, rich characters in school shows always play spoiled brats who have antagonistic roles towards our lead for not being rich or hate them for existing. But here, it's kind of refreshing to see this archetype develop a friendship with the lead. She's quite a quirky little gremlin that just brings the funniest part of the show in my opinion. I'm just a sucker for spoiled rich blondes becoming decent human beings archetype. Something Pacifica. But not her brother though, fuck that shit. So yeah, there's not much. I just enjoy this girl-oriented show. I'll give it an A.
Yeah, right.
This is the second show from Nickelodeon that I used to record on VHS, and it's the first show we're gonna talk about that originated from Y2K cartoons, and is from one of our recurring Nickelodeon creators, Butch Hartman. Talking about him will take forever, but in his defense, despite the plagiarism, the AI post, the con that costed a hand and a leg, the weird Christian streaming service, making a joke about Tara Strong being responsible for Mary Kay Bergman's suicide,
That was probably your fault.
and many other things, at least he's not John K. Anyway, I love Fairly Odd Parents. I almost recorded all of the first 4 seasons alongside the TV special Abra Catastrophe with few missing episodes here and there. And I know for a fact that the 4 seasons were the only ones that got translated into Icelandic. But they did show the Jimmy Timmy Power Hour when they showed Jimmy Neutron on television, which was not translated in Icelandic, but the movie was for some reason. I love all these stupid jokes, these stupid characters, even the stupid metafictional Crimson Chin and his stupid gallery of villains like the Bronze Kneecap and the one I can't say out loud. But I don't really care that much for Crash Nebula and his test pilot. This is just the same design, and you can't convince me otherwise. Sadly, I did miss out on Channel Chasers, which, like the SpongeBob movie, was peak, and would have been the perfect bookend to the show. But no, we got 6 more seasons that included Poof, the fairy baby whom I want to throw at a wall, 3 live-action TV movies starring Drake Bell, one of the worst plot twists of all time, Sparky, the fairy dog that talks, whom I am sure doesn't do anything important after his initial appearance, Chloe, the other godchild in the last season that changed the animation style with his ugly flash look that totally wasn't a marketing ploy for Butch's new show at the time, and a live-action spin-off sequel that I'm not watching, and thus the show's popularity plummeted to the ground. Again, with a sponge, early season gets an S, but everything together, I would say it's not as bland as recent spawns, but more annoying. So I'll give it a B.
Pretty great, you got a name with Fairly Odd Parents.
After some growing pains of bad decisions, they made New Wish after Butch left to Nick and started doing other things that we are not getting into. And for the first time in a long time, I was actually interested in a Fairly Odd Parents content again. Because, you know, I'm not talking about Fairly Odd Parents, that is not worth my attention. Anyway, I think the new show is pretty neat. I like the new cast, which are kind of fun. The art style is very pretty to look at. I think Hazel is a better protagonist than Timmy is, but only if we are talking about post-channel chasers. She can be sometimes selfish and sometimes flawed, but she's still interesting in that regard. Insert Chloe slander here. She actually spends time and develops a relationship with her friends and family. The fact that her dynamic with Cosmo and Wanda is almost the opposite of their old Timmy dynamic actually does something new and interesting while still treating the old show with respect. Sure, some of the cameos in the show are just that, and other take more screen time from the original stuff. Like sure, Dale Dimmadome, son of Doug Dimmadome and the owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome, only appeared in one episode of the original show.
Dale Dimmadome!
So his extended role in New Wish makes more sense, and same goes with Poof, who also feels like a new character, cause they are not a baby anymore, or a plot device. But then we have characters like Crocker, Jurgen, Vicky, and Foop that are still the same, which is, you know, kind of part of the joke. But sometimes I feel like when they are on the screen, they take away the time we could have for the new original stuff. It's like, oh look, it's Crocker, he's doing Crocker things, and oh look, it's Vicky, they're singing the Vicky song. Oh, it's Foop, fuck Foop. And that's just few of my gripes with the show, like the 2D art in the title cards that looks a little off. Hazel's and Dev's relationship was a chaotic roller coaster with highs and lows that dragged out a lot, and the ending was a little rushed. But this is probably the best spin-off show compared to like what came before, and probably what is gonna come later on. So I'm just gonna give it an A. It's time to talk about the goat himself, Yonan Vasquez, the guy behind the comic book series Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I thought at first he also made Leonore the cute little dead girl, but no, that was Roman Dirge, who is a comic book writer, artist, and a former magician. That was a fun little thing that I learned. So yeah, this is Invader Zim. I would compare it to the Cartoon Network show The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, but only season 1, because while I like Billy and Mandy, I think that show is more comedy first and horror theme second. You know, like a bizarro courage in a sense. But Invader Zim asked the question of, what if the first season of Billy and Mandy expanded into a whole show, but instead of supernatural horror, it was science fiction horror, with some supernatural here and there. Something that looks so crude, so unhinged, has actual gore on screen, a show that's airing on the same channel as SpongeBob, which also had gore, but that's beside the point, and has just as much focus on horror as it focuses on its comedy. Even so, this show is so funny, and no, it's not just because of Gurr, even though I love that little shit. But everyone and everything in the show is hilarious. Sim and his stupid and downright brain-dead ways to blend in with humans, and also his terrible take over the world plans. Dip, who is the biggest punchbag in the entire show. There's Dip's dad, who is just the funniest character in the show. And then there's Gas, the chaotic good version of Mandy. Oh hey look, they were friends in Powerpuff Girls Doujinshi. And if you were one of those people that were trying to forget that Powerpuff Girls Doujinshi exists, well, that's not my problem. Everything she says and does in the show is pure gold. I like the episode where she saves Dip, where she tries to buy a video game, and the pork episode. Insane. Love that. Just outright classic. Comedy gold. Best character. Oh yeah, then there was the movie, and compared to the other two Nick movies that came out around the same time, this might be the best of the bunch. It has like two very minor nitpicks, you know, the pastel color scheme art style, and like two scenes animated in Flash, but that's nothing compared to the majority of the movie. Enter the Florpus, the epic conclusion to the story of the loser Urkin who wanted to take over the world just so his piece of shit bosses would appreciate him for once, and Dip's final chance to stop Sim, save the world, and prove to his dad that he was right the entire time. Well, I say epic, but it's epic in terms of what Invader Zim has to offer. So, yeah, this is an S show. Big surprise. I love drawing.
New drawing drop. Do you want to see it? Hey, no, this is the
New
worst one yet.
drawing.
This one is so I hate this one. There's so much detail in it.
Why?
Thank you.
Well, you hate
Behold,
it.
Gamer Chiaki.
Is she on a ship bucket?
That's fantastic! Drawing is one of my favorite passions in the world, and I have a great soft spot for shows about drawing. Like Louie, not that one, and Bob Ross, but the majority of time I watch drawing videos on YouTube, like Drawfee. Anyway, Chalkzone, the show that technically started in the 90s from the Oh Yeah cartoon pilot, but then became an actual show in the 2000s, so this is the first 2000 show I'm seeing for the first time. Created by Larry Huber and Bill Burnett, Chalkzone tells the tale of Rudy Patootie, who discovers a magical chalk that every time he draws on a chalkboard and erases it, it goes into the magical world of Chalkzone and gains sentience. How horrifying. Most of the episodes are about him discovering all these creations alongside the superhero doodle Snap, the guide of Chalkzone, where he tells Rudy to draw something so they can solve a particular problem of today's adventures. And sometimes Penny, Rudy's book smart friend and obvious love interest, joins in from time to time. She's played by Hinton Waltz, and this was her very first major role in voice acting. You might know her from anything you have ever watched ever. The biggest charms the show offers us are the weird concepts and characters from the Chalkzone, the chalk-like art style of Chalk World mixed with the tooty art style of the real world, and the music, from the demonic-like chanting of the intro to the weird music videos that come at the end of the episodes. They kind of remind me of Sonic Underground, only not terrible. Wait a minute, is that the Baha Man? I like what this show is, does, and represents. I can tell the show was made with love with the amount of charm the show offers us. It's just beautiful. So just out of principle alone, and you know, I actually liked it, this show gets an S.
3, 2, 1.
Got a blast! So I said I wasn't gonna talk about original Nick movies, cause the majority of them are live action and only a handful of them are animated. But Jimmy Neutron and another one are major exception because they led to animated shows. Also yes, the Jimmy Neutron movie was a blast. But the show is unhinged. From the mind behind the Thumb movies and Kung Pao, Steve Odekirk gives us Jimmy Neutron, the very first 3D animated Nick show.
Go away, Sisa-G!
That's almost like Dexter's Lab, but without it being a secret to its parents and actually has friends. Also focusing more on screwball comedy rather than the spooky surrealism. So, you know, season 3 and 4 of Dexter's Lab, but good. Actually, I forgot to mention this for like the last 5-ish shows because it's not really that important, but I realized that there's a common trend of plots in Nickelodeon shows that revolves around the in-universe premise being kept a secret from people close to the protagonist, which is funny because the show kind of feels like it should be a kept a secret kind of plot, but I guess it would have clashed with another show about a boy genius. Now, if there was a show about a girl genius from Australia that also didn't keep it a secret from her friends and family, and both shows came out the same year, same month, with only 10 days apart, that would be a little sus. Okay, I'll say this outright. Dexter's Lab is a better show in my opinion, but Johnny Quasar, the runaway rocket boy, is pretty good for what it is. Also better than Tracy McBean, yeah, I said it. I love Jimmy, I love his parents, his robot dog, I love Carl, Sheen is also there, I love the weird and stupid adventures they go on, I love the two-parter where the evil egg aliens from the movie come back, the episode where the dad becomes famous, every episode with Professor Finbar Calamitous is awesome, and the 3 whole Fairly Odd Parents crossovers were pretty rad. Despite the show looking kinda ugly, it kinda fits the vibe, and I can only describe the show being a perfect voice stim for majority of the cast. This show gets an "Aw, Jimmy, I wanna fuck your mom, Jimmy."
Don't take the red pill. That's for cucks who
No, Jimmy, take the red pill!
Oh no, it's yet another take the comedic dumb character and give them their own show. But unlike the Patrick Star show, it at least was set in another place and time and aired after the original show had stopped airing. Boy, that's a big gap right there. The premise is about Sheen getting stranded on a boring alien planet, and it has its own brand of humor by not being funny. Now, I said it's a comedic relief spin-off, but it can be argued that Sheen is not the funniest character from the original show. That goes to Carl and Jimmy's dad and Professor Finn. Look, everyone in this show was funnier than Sheen. And just like Sheen and Patrick Star, they don't need their own show. Because sure, Sheen was never my favorite member of Jimmy Neutron, but he still had his moments in the movie and the original show. But now that he isn't around the other characters to play off against, now he's just surrounded by these weird, lame alien OCs like the King, the guy who wants to kill Sheen, same, and Carl, who is now a green slug. And if this Carl isn't MILF hunting, then what is he good for? Also, if we were to remove the connection between this show and the original show, it's a very bland looking, not that funny, and overall boring show. So I'll just give it an F.
You wouldn't like my body. It's all circuity and metallic.
From the creator of Mina and the Count, Rob Rensetti got to make one of his pilots he made for Oh Yeah cartoons into an actual show. Sadly, it was not Mina and the Count, but thankfully it was My Neighbor Was a Teenage Robot, his very Astro Boy coded show, because Rob Rensetti is a big fan of Osamu Tezuka. It kinda pisses me off that I watched more Robot Boy than I did this show, cause I've heard this show was some peak shit, while I never hear anything good about Robot Boy. Or rather, I hardly hear anything at all about Robot Boy. This show has a lot of similar qualities of a Cartoon Network action show baked into it. It just looks, feels, and sounds very similar to Powerpuff Girls or Samurai Jack. Both thick outlines or even no outlines, with some quick and flashy action scenes and crass humor that feels like something out of Dexter's Lab. Truly feels like a show aired on the wrong channel. That and another show. I think the characters are a mixed bag if anything else. Like sure, I like Jenny and Dr. Wakeman a lot. Their mother-daughter dynamic is the bread and butter of the show. And it's kind of funny seeing this weird spin on a doting mother archetype, while Jenny's adventure mostly consists of teenage shenanigan and angst. Shenanigangst, while also fighting weirdo one-up villains and the recurring bug aliens from The Cluster. Before the show, the only exposure I had of The Cluster was in Powerpuff Girls Dojinshi, where they murdered the cast of Atomic Betty. Speaking of Atomic Betty, I was gonna put that in the Cartoon Network ranking video, but due to some research I made, I decided to abort it, like how the robots aborted the Atomic Betty cast. Oh hey, look at that, another Teletoon show and another reference to a Bleedman comic. Video making is my passion, and it's the only way I can talk about Kurt's Bleedman comics. However, I do not care that much for the rest of the supporting cast. Brad and Tuck are kinda boring, Sheldon gets creepier in every episode and not in an endearing way, and the two fashion cousins can be funny at times, but that's about it. The only supporting cast I love are Jenny's prototype sisters, but they appear in very few episodes. I like the season 2 finale Escape from Cluster Prime, which in my opinion could have been the perfect ending, but season 3 exists. I don't hate season 3, I just think it's okay. I would have preferred to put it before the season 2 finale, but you know, that's just me. I would say the show is good. Butch returns with a show about ghosts, even though he has claimed later on that ghosts don't exist in the show because of his religion or something. Hey, come on man, Chris Borst told me the ghosts were real, so who should I believe now? So if you watched Fairly Odd Parents and noticed Crimson Chin got more and more screen time the later the show went on, you must have thought, man, Butch really likes this cape shit slop, doesn't he? That's basically what this show is. He wanted to make a superhero show, and here is the superhero show that he wanted to make. This is also the second superhero show made by Nickelodeon, where it tells the story of a young man who needs to learn about that with great power comes great responsibility. And no, David Kaufman did not play Spider-Man. That was Josh Keaton. He did play Human Torch though, who is the complete opposite of that quote. Alongside Danny, we get introduced to a cast of likable and overall fun characters like Danny's caring sister, whom I didn't expect to play such a major role throughout the series, his ghost hunting parents who never failed to make me laugh, his two best friends who know his secret identity. While I don't really care that much for Tucker, I think Sam is really fun, and I find it really interesting that the show has such a large appreciation for goth culture, because you know, you wouldn't think they would get this much appreciation during that time. But what I think people mostly remember the show for is its iconic rogue gallery. Some I didn't care for, like Technus, Fright Night, and Emperor for other reasons. Damn! While others I liked, each one for different different reasons, like Skulker for being consistent, Walker for having a cool concept as an antagonist, Ghostbox because Ghostbox, and major antagonist Vlad Plazimus, who joins the group of Nickelodeon villains who are very, very funny, but unlike the rest, he kinda gets taken seriously compared to Plankton and Crocker, because nothing is more scary than a villain who wants to fuck my mom. With the show separated into 3 seasons, it's actually very easy to describe my overall thoughts on the show. Season 1 was good, nothing groundbreaking or anything, just good for what it is. A solid opener if anything. Season 2 is where the show peaks. Everything feels like it's changing in the best of ways, stories are actually going somewhere, and Danny actually grows not just in power but in character, with bunch of good one-offs like the time he goes back in time, fucks shits up, and major story arcs like Dark Danny, which was excellent. Bleedman fans might know him for having sex with Mandy from Billy and Mandy, cause it wouldn't be a Anar Prime video about childhood cartoons if I didn't squeeze in Bleedman comics somewhere in this conversation. Season 2 finale felt like it would actually have interesting consequences for Danny and future arcs, but was changed at the last minute, which leads us to the major downgrade that is Season 3. Now, from an outsider perspective, there is nothing very awful about Season 3, but that's the thing though, it's just stagnation. Sure, there's Danny's little clone sister, but that goes nowhere. There's a lot of Danny x Sam moments that do go somewhere, but if you didn't see that coming, then you are giving Butch too much credit. My favorite moment in all of Season 3 is that Box Ghost got a whole episode about himself, which was actually good, while my least favorite moment was in fact the season finale, which gotta be one of the most train wreck of a finale I've ever seen. Also, shout out to Valerie, the character with the most wasted potential ever. Well, her and Walker. Now there are a bunch of videos on Butch's YouTube channel where he talked about the potential 4th season and all the interesting ideas he had, but Butch, there were other people making the show, and it could be argued they actually made the show better. Is it Butch's fault that the show went downhill? Yes, the answer is yes. He wrote the finale. This is how he decided to end the show. I give this entire show a B for Butch. Fun fact, my mom recommended me the M. Night Shyamalan movie with the context that it was a bad movie. She was right. And then I decided to watch the show years later. And you know, it's not really a big deal or anything, but this just happens to be one of the greatest shows of all time and all that. Fun-loving and strong-written characters like Aang, Zuko, and Combustion Man. Excellent written arcs of stories like The Girl Who Got Turned Into a Moon.
That's rough, buddy.
And the 4-part finale. Animation heavily inspired by Eastern animation. You know, the good ones, not the One Punch Man ones. Amazing voice acting, all thanks to Andrea Romano for directing voice actors for this show and all of these ones. Very strong one-off episodes that anyone can enjoy, like the Ember Island Prayers and Tales of Ba Sing Se, that's famous for being one of the last roles that Mako Iomatsu ever did.
Leaves from the vine, falling so slow.
Sheer influence that this show would have on many others in terms of writing, looks, and overall vibes. I like everything about it, from the cabbage gags to the comics that were drawn by Gurihiru. And with all that, there is not anything unique I can say about this show that hundreds of other people haven't already said. This show is almost too good for this network, and they know that. That is so sad. This is one of their most profitable franchises with all the games, the comics, the live action adaptations, and the sequel series. And speaking of the sequel series, oh yeah, the show gets an ass, big surprise. And speaking of the sequel series,
Earth.
the sequel to Last Airbender. The show, not the movie, or the live-action TV show. And you can imagine that Avatar getting a sequel was met with a lot of hype around it. The Nick show, not the Blue Ape movie. Does it live up to the high expectation that the original set up? Well, there's a video series called Legend of Korra, which is a real title for a real video series. So you can imagine what some people think about that show. There is a woman in it. Be afraid. I've never seen these videos, and I I am not interested. But with that said, Legend of Korra is a divisive show to say the least, and has just as many haters as it has fans. But I think this show was good. No masterpiece or a disaster, just a good show. Although the first impression was fairly meh. The first 2 seasons didn't do that much for me, and the show overall has barely any one-off episodes, unless we're talking about the pro bending games, but I didn't care for it, and it was also part of the main plot, so it doesn't really count. 3rd and 4th season, they are, in my opinion, the best part of Korra, and the callbacks, they are nice. Korra herself is an interesting character to say the least. She suffers like the majority of the cast, where their personalities are not the most important thing over the story they want to tell us. Except Bolin. He's perfect the way he is. They are mostly just stories that are happening to the characters, but not the characters happening to the story, if that makes any sense. All these problems were fixed in the 3rd and 4th season, because now it feels like Korra's character has more of an effect on the story, rather than the story happening to her. The rest of the new cast are a hit or miss. Tenzin is excellent, but his family is a mixed bag. Mako and Asami are there. Lin was okay, but we all know the show stealers were Bolin, Varric, and Suli. I don't think about the show all the time. The good points outweigh the bad points, because I'm not that interested in the bad points to be mad about them. I thought the show did well for what it was. I'll give the show an A. Catscratch! Finally, another snarky animal show. It's been like 20 segments or less since we talked about one of those, unless you are skipping chapters when I make this into a compilation and I remember to make chapters in the video. Created by Doug Tenapple, who you might know for making Earthworm Jim, Catscratch is a show that is loosely based on his comic book series Gear. By loose, I mean it's more screwball comedy taking place in suburbia where they do screwball comedy stuff, rather than the dark dystopian setting about the 3 cats fighting giant robots in the post-apocalypse. Excuse me, what? It revolves around 3 cats. The dumb gray one, the Scottish white and orange one, and the black asshole one who's voiced by Wayne Knight. And this show gives me similar vibes as Angry Beavers and Cat Dog. Episodic screwball comedies featuring animal siblings living together with different personalities that either lead them into shenanigans and or gets them out of shenanigans. More the former than the latter, etc, etc. Now in comparison, I have more fondness of the Beavers brand of comedy, and I like Cat Dog's rare emotional moments. I think the trio of these stupid ugly cats and their wacky adventures are passable at best, forgettable at worst. The episode where they meet Catilda is good, and just every episode that includes her is the highlight of the show. All 2 episodes out of the 20 episodes. Yeah, this show didn't last that long, and spoiler alert, that's gonna be the same thing for the next 4 shows. So it's gonna take a hot minute until we get something big again. So at first I was like, it's another silly comedy show, it's not that bad. But now that I learned about the original comic, now I just wonder what could have been, you know? Because believe it or not, maybe we needed less shows trying to be the new SpongeBob, and more shows trying to be like Invader Zims in terms of going away from the norm of TV standards. The show took the gritty murder cats and neutered them just so we could entertain the precious kids. Well, I say fuck them kids, they need to experience some dirty, unfiltered, raw entertainment, otherwise you will last 20 episodes and be forgotten. In fact, if there's any show that Doug had any involvement with, then you should just go watch the Earthworm Jim show. Also, I didn't want to go on a tangent regarding Doug's political views and his various transphobic remarks. I am not the person when it comes to assigning the moral compass for what the controversial Nickelodeon creators say on social media, but I'll say this was really dumb, and I hope he has changed his mind in the future. The show gets a B, you know? Not that good, not that great. Hey, remember the Disney show Replacement? That show about 2 kids who use a company to replace certain people of very specific occupations so they could have some other people work on those occupations just to make their days feel slightly better. And the first thing they did with that was getting new parents, with a dad being a stuntman and their mother being a spy. Well, what if we did that show, but everyone was a spy, with a dose of Patrick Warburton? In fact, this isn't the first time Patrick Warburton plays in a weird animated family dynamic. First time being in Game Over 2004, where they are all video game archetypes. Also, yeah, I know the replacement came after this show, but it still counts, so shut up. So yeah, it's a show about a family of spies doing spy shit, and adopting a dog, and falling in love with the son of an evil scientist. It's pretty fun, I gotta admit. Probably better than My Spy Family, cause despite my weird guilty pleasure towards that show, I never felt the family dynamic was as strong there than it is here. I like the Erin insurance look for the show, very appropriate. Sadly, the mom doesn't have enough art of her compared to Erin, and I find the dynamic between the family funny and wholesome. The episode where the kids get to lead a mission is fun, so is the episode where the parents try to teach their kids to cook and play sports. Peak comedy there. I guess there isn't much to say. I would probably recommend someone to check it out of aesthetics or Patrick Warburton alone. So yeah, hey, did you know that I used to have a tan during high school and my friends called me Hispanic? This has nothing to do with the subject we are discussing. This is El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera, created by George Gutierrez and Sandra Equihua, a married couple known for their works on Book of Life, Maya y los Tres, and Buzz on Maggie. This is a show about Manny Rivera, also known as El Tigre, the son of a famous luchador superhero, White Pantera, and the grandson of a supervillain, Puma Loco. While Manny dons the costume of the Tiger, he needs to decide if he's gonna be a hero or a villain. Well, mostly he does heroic deeds, and villainy is more of a conflict for Manny to struggle with in the mental way, or to fight against in the physical way. Now, based on the couple's previous and later works, you can see their flair of overly disproportionate body parts art style still shines bright in this show. I think the premise is very unique in the library of Nick shows. Not saying it's any better or worse than the shows before, just a little unique. In fact, this show was so unique, Nickelodeon decided to have an election for one episode, the good, the bad, and the Tigre, on how it should have ended. It wasn't even the season finale anything, so would El Tigre become a hero or a villain? Well, based on how the formula of the episode usually goes, it's safe to say either the majority chose the good ending because choosing the evil route would feel a little weird, or Nick chickened out and gave us the good ending. But the bad ending still exists, and it's more of a gag than anything else. But in the end, what really matters is that this show is not about superheroes or supervillains, but family. 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 Familia. Which is why I give this show an A. Hey, remember the game Talk and the Power of Juju? Yeah, me neither. I mostly played Ratchet & Clank until Size Matters ruined it for me. I also played Jak and Daxter, but then Jak 2 ruined it for me. Anyway, Talk got his own show instead of, these games. So I decided to check out the cutscenes for the game to see if the show is accurate to the source material and if they share the same quality of writing and terms of comedy. Good news, they do. And if you like the game, then I can for sure say that this show is for you. I, however, think this show is mid. It looks kind of ugly. The writing is very poor. Most of the characters are pretty bland. Patrick Warburton is the only good part about the show and or the games. And I don't know or care if the continuity of the games and the show are 1-to-1. I think the origin episode is neat. That's probably the best episode. I'm not gonna lie. The theme song desperately wants to be like Chalkzone, and you can never be as good as Chalkzone. And in this weird new landscape of highly praised video game adaptation, it's a wonder we ever got here in the first place with all the mediocrity and hot garbage we had to sit through. Except you guys, you are perfect. Yeah, Talk gets a C.
Don't she know it, don't you know it's just the way we animals roll.
Finally, we got our very first trans MC in a Nickelodeon show. Unless the Danny Phantom theory is true. The man behind Jimmy Neutron and the screenplay for the Nutty Professor remake, Steve Odekirk, returns with another weird show that also started as a movie. 2 times the charm, I guess. Now, at first, I didn't think the same guy who made Jimmy Neutron made this show, but as soon as I learned that, it all made sense. I haven't seen the movie as much as Jimmy Neutron, so I have a very loose memory of it, but everything I do remember humor, I thought it was pretty good. This show has been memed on hell and back, so I got a feeling that the enjoyment was ironic, but it has Weird Al Yankovic, so this might be the best show ever. Then I actually watched this show, and you know what? The Weird Al Yankovic thing was correct. This show is actually really good. Just like Jimmy Neutron, they both have that ugly yet charming 3D animation and weird non sequitur type of humor that's very prevalent throughout both shows. Even the farm animals have a similar snark like Jimmy and his much cooler friends. What can I say? I just like unhinged humor like this. This might not be my favorite Oda Kirk show, but there are like 3 of them, so this might be one of the best. Hey.
Come on, everybody, let it be, let it be.
Oh, finally, I get to talk about Camp Leslo again. Oh wait, this is not Camp Leslo. Created by Amy Poehler, Cynthia True, and Eric Weiss, The Mighty Bee tells the tale of Bessie, who wants to get all the scout badges so she can become a bee-themed superhero, I think. Most normal premise for a show I've ever heard, but most of the episodes are just her and her dog, her brother, her friend Penny, her 2 frenemies just goofing off. So it's just Camp Leslo, but with humans, with a Ren and Stimpy-esque art style and a vanilla version of their humor, which still is some gross out humor and random non sequiturs. Like, some of the jokes are actually funny, but if there's a bad joke, I probably have forgotten about them. The characters are hit and miss. Like, Bessie is a fine protag. She can sometimes be charming and other times annoying. The other characters are meh. I think her friend is fine. Her brother is forgettable. That dog is fine. He's the most memorable thing about the show, you know, in comparison to the other forgettable casts. Also, I said I wouldn't compare 2 similar shows, but Camp Leslo, the other camp-related show, did have an outrageous ending. And the last episode of Mighty Bee is evil KGB agent that the dog used to work for tries to capture him again, but Bessie and the dog team up to kill the KGB agent. But that's just a regular episode. You know, when I think about it, the majority of Mighty Bee has nothing to do with camp. I think both me and the people making the show has lost what the show is about. This might sound cliche, but it would be very appropriate to give it a B based on the title alone. So I'm gonna put it in C.
Cute and cuddly boys.
I loved the Madagascar movie when I was young. The energy, the comedy, the weird emotional moments at the end, the sequel that was actually good, third one that was okay, but what everyone remembers fondly from the franchise are the penguins. The idea of super agile spy penguins that take everything seriously was indeed funny. But then someone asked, what if we only focused on them? Well, we got a whole show and a movie, which I'm sure are not canon in any way, shape or form to each other or to the original movies. But if I were to analyze if all DreamWorks extended media was canon to each other, I would turn into the Charlie Day meme. The movie was alright since the charm of the penguins doesn't work as well when you take away the main quartet, but the show actually works since the penguins are just put in the zoo again along with the lemurs for some reason. Don't question it, they're popular, especially the foot fetish one. With all the characters that you know from the original movies, there were also new characters put in there for the better or for the worse. For the better, we had Marlene the Otter, the most straight man girl to everyone else's foils. Dr. Blowhole, played by Neil Patrick Harris, which might be the most out there concept for the Madagascar world. Then again, this might be a parallel universe, but who fucking cares, really? And the worst, like the zookeeper lady. Oh my god, why does he look like that? Yeah, I would say this is the best Madagascar spin-off material I've ever seen. I think. I'm not watching the other show. It's pretty good, but I'm not that crazy about that. So, B.
Followed by the brand new series, Random Cartoons.
Now this is some Greek tragedy, if I've ever seen one. RC is the second backdoor pilot show made for Nick after OYC, and the third Fred Seibert cartoon incubator he made after WAC and OYC, but before TCC and GC.
I want my P in your B, want you to S on my T.
The majority of the pilots here are not as great as OIC or even Kablam in terms of presentation, with some actually could have worked as new shows in my opinion, like Flavio, but some are kinda meh, like the Finster show. The problem I have with these pilots is that although they all look different to each other, they all feel the same, they all move the same, they all sound the same, you know? I mean, some of them stand out on their own, while others just look like they were animated by the same 3 people. Just like Oh Yeah Cartoons, only 3 pilots became actual shows, but only one of them was picked up by Nick. The other 2 that were not picked up by Nick would be Bravest Warriors and Adventure Time, that became a classic Cartoon Network show, both made by Pendleton Ward. Adventure Time is one of my favorite things of all time, and the fact Nick said no to it because they thought it wasn't gonna be a hit. Well, here's a fun fact. Adventure Time lasted 10 seasons, made a bunch of comic books, handful of video games, and probably the best spin-off show I've seen in a while. Would I have liked Adventure Time as much if it was aired on Nickelodeon? Hard to say really. Also, Bravest Warrior was okay while it lasted. What's not hard to say is while these pilots were not picked up, some of the creators would end up working on some other shows, which is nice, for the most part. This variety show did the opposite of what a variety show about backdoor pilots is supposed to do. Instead of picking one of the pilots that are actually good and could have been a cash cow franchise, which might have been something they wanted to do because they're running out of ideas for their already existing cash cow, they chose the cheapest, ugliest, and downright the most insulting pick they could have chosen. I would have taken Solomon Fix over, well, you know, we'll get to that later. And now that's just the lasting legacy of random cartoons. This variety show sadly gets a B, cause this actually is a variety of quality. Some were fun, some were a little annoying, but I'll take any of them over the actual show that was picked up by Nickelodeon, which was... Here are some fun facts. Fanboy is played by Rickety Cricket from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Does my scar look like a dog's vagina? You know, maybe. I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and try to get inside the mind of a dog.
That's the end of the fun facts. I fucking hate Fanboy and ChumChum. I'm fairly certain a lot of people don't like Fanboy and ChumChum. Like, what do you want me to say? This show looks and sounds just as bad as you think it is, because it's just overall loud, annoying, and trying way too hard to keep your attention with its gross out humor and random lols XT humor. This show is hard to watch. Some people say Fanboy and ChumChum is spiritually based on Adam West Batman, and to that I have to say, are you fucking serious? Adam West Batman is peak shit, while this dookie diarrhea coming out of Buffalo just makes me scream. If you ever met someone who said Adam West Batman is a bad show, then just show them this and you have won every argument ever. At first, I was slightly afraid that this show was made by the same person who made My Pet Alien, a guilty pleasure of mine, but no. Fuckboy and ChumChum was made by Eric Rhodes, while My Pet Alien was made by Jeff Munchie. Well, I'm glad Eric went on to work on a better show in the future. Maybe people like Kyle the Wizard Boy, but he's no Squidward or Granville the Spray. Now that's a real butt monkey right there. But overall, this show sucks, and if you think I'm being unfair, well, watch this scene. Case closed. F.